Welcome back everybody to episode 4 of the concept art series, which of course ties in with our Island 12 Planet Coaster series. Now if you've seen the last build video of the Planet Coaster series, you will know that we have actually finished with the main gates of the park and also the first island, which is Island 12 of the series. So in today's episode I am going to be drawing some concept art for the next island. This one is an island, but it's actually, like, you're going to see it's not really an island pretty quickly on, and you're probably going to guess exactly what this island is going to look like within like the first minute or two of this video. If you probably can't already tell already, yes, this island is a tree. So there is a lot of lore to do with this tree. This tree is kind of very important to the valley. This tree is so important. I'm not actually going to talk too much about the lore in today's episode because I have to kind of work a few things out with this before I start talking about it, because I haven't quite worked everything out with this just yet, and I don't want to say something that can confuse people about this, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of being careful what I say lore wise, but let's just say this tree is very important to the universe and to the valley itself. We just saw a little bit of a jump cut there in the footage. Unfortunately that like kind of in between section wasn't recorded for whatever reason that I did try and look for on my PC, but yeah, I couldn't find that. So I will explain how I got from where I was a second ago to that kind of texture on the tree in just a minute. But yeah, as for the lore for the tree, we'll probably come back to that at a later episode, because there's a lot of stuff there that we need to discuss about who's on the tree, who like what goes on the tree. There's a ton of stuff to do with this island that's going to kind of tie everything in from all the other islands. So I think the lore for this tree is probably going to happen towards the end of the series, once all the other islands and all the other races have been spoken about, and then we'll tie everything back to here, because this is very, very important. And I don't want to like confuse anything as of now, because that's just going to make it more difficult to explain stuff a little bit later on in the series. But what I can tell you is this tree is, like, at the moment being used for a trade hub for the valley itself. So this is like pretty much in the center of the valley, so they use this as the trade hub. All of the pathways or all of the bridges that connect the island together, a lot of them converge onto this tree, so it just makes sense for them to use this as a trade area between all of the different islands. So the different islands, they all produce different stuff, whether it be food or furniture or whatever it happens to be, they all converge here to sell their goods. So this is the trade hub. It manages the trade between all of the different islands. So what you've got to imagine, obviously right now this is being built in Planet Coaster, which is a pretty small area. So these islands are all pretty close together, right? But in the real valley, if like you actually got to travel there, this is like massive miles and miles and miles of land and space between each of these islands, and the bridges that connect them together are just humongous. Obviously they're going to be cram packed into Planet Coaster a lot tighter, because obviously the map isn't endless, but in reality these islands would be huge and they would be miles between each other, because before they got ripped up into the upper space, I guess you could say. It's not actually space, but you know, into the sky. They were just communities and like people down on the ground. So they all had their different areas, as you would say, like in America you have Texas, and then you have Florida, and you have New York and DC. Like that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. And then these areas then just got turned into islands and they were floating above. Obviously there's massive spaces in between these places. That's what I'm kind of trying to get across that like these islands will look close in Planet Coaster, but in reality they're like really far apart. So yeah, they all converge on this tree. So for this concept art itself, I wanted to actually make sure I did kind of a lot more detail on this one than any of the previous ones that I had done. So I did look up online how to kind of get these textures the way that I wanted for this tree, and I found a video that was pretty interesting. It showed me how to use reference images for color picking, which is really cool. There's a tool in Photoshop under the brush section that I used a lot for this tool. So basically what you do is you find an image online or a reference image for whether it be bark for a tree or moss for like for the ground or grass or whatever you want, and you use this tool, and what it does is it captures the colors from a specific area of an image, and then it puts those colors onto the brush for you. So whereas normally you'd be painting or drawing with one color, now you can draw with a range of colors all at once. So that's what I did for this bark. I picked a tree that I liked the look of, and I used this tool, and it picked out a few different shades of brown, and then you can edit the tool as well. So you can add space in between the colors, so it will like the way that it plops the colors onto the canvas, so to speak. And then you can scatter them, and you can put rough edge in and smooth edge in, and like scatter, and like there's loads of stuff you can do to edit the way that it kind of paints those colors onto the screen. So that's what I did. I took the different brown colors of the tree. You can see me actually doing it now for the color of the top of the tree. You can see me like just changing the way that it scatters and stuff like that, and it just gives you a really nice base for the painting basically. So that's how I got the texture for the tree, and it really does help, because just like picking colors out for something specific as a tree is hard enough just to do by eye anyway. You're never going to get a good color just by eye. So actually taking colors from a real life image, shades of colors, is really helpful, and then to actually have more than one at a time is just crazy. I would have got this texture if I hadn't used that specific tool. So yeah, that is how I did this. All of my other paintings, or all of my other concepts up until now, have been using a single color at a time, and most of it was drawn 1 pixel thick as well. So that is why it's like all my other stuff was like really liney and all had like black outlines and stuff like that. Very kind of cartoony kind of drawings up until now. But I'm learning new ways of using tools in Photoshop. That's what I spoke about a lot in the last episode. It's not so much about skill as it is learning the tools. So you can be the best drawer in the world, jump on Photoshop and not be able to do anything, because if you don't know how the tools work, then you're not going to be able to put your artistic skills into the program. So someone that doesn't have that greater skill, if you know how to use the tools, you'll be able to draw something better than like a professional painter if they don't know how to use the tools. At least that's what I feel like anyway. It's a mix between having the skills and being able to use the tools provided by the program. So a lot of the stuff here isn't really to do with my skills of drawing to be able to make this tree look the way it does. It's more about using the tools and the way that you use the tools, I feel anyway. Like, you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but yeah, I never would have been able to draw this tree the way it looks now if I didn't have the tools provided by the program. So I'm very happy with the way that the base of this tree turned out, for sure. I think it looks great. It looks a lot better than anything I've drawn up until now. But as you can see now, we're back to drawing 1 pixel thick, because we're actually drawing like the living, well, not living quarters, because, you know, no one lives in this section, but this is like the market, the trading area like we spoke about earlier for this tree. So yeah, just drawing this in. This is obviously going back to my old drawing ways of using small thin brushes to get this kind of like, I guess you could call it like pixel art, because it is really down to like the smallest of details, because it's really small. Like when I'm drawing the finer details underneath this canvas here, it's really difficult because you're trying to get minuscule detail in that you just can't get. Now there is another method to digital art that a lot of artists actually use, and it's a way of cropping real life images into artwork. I'm not sure whether I want to dabble with that or try that out or test that to see what it's like. But basically what they'll do is they'll find reference images online and they'll put them into Photoshop. They'll take an interesting piece of that and then they'll add it into their painting. So some of their painting will be real life imagery, some of it will be painting, obviously normal drawing painting in Photoshop, and they kind of like merge the two together, so it's undistinguishable. Like you can't tell like what's art, what's painted and what's real life. Like they do such a great job at merging these two together that it just looks like a full painting. So some people are going to say, oh, that's kind of cheating if you're using that, but I guess you have to have the skills to be able to merge the two together to actually get it to look good. Like if I just tried it now, it would probably look terrible. But people do it a lot with rock work. If they're drawing like a massive mountain, they'll paint a lot of the mountain, but they'll add sections of real rock work into that mountain, and they kind of like paint it in. If that makes sense. So closer detail will kind of have the more textured real life rock work, and then as you get further and further away, it's painted and more faded, and it looks really good. Like some of the stuff they can do by using this technique is absolutely insane. If I could like get anywhere near as good as some of these guys that do this, like some of the stuff I could draw or come up with would be insane. But I don't know how I feel about using real life imagery to do that. I would have to try it out and see. Maybe in a future concept, like obviously right now I'm still in the learning phases, so I got to learn all these different types of doing stuff before I can choose what I want to work on and move forward with. The previous artworks that I'd done had kind of just been learning how to draw again, because I hadn't drawn in like 10 years. So learning to draw again was the first couple. Now I'm really getting into like the finer details of the program. What can I do with this program other than just scribble on a screen? And it's kind of exciting because I'm finding out all these new techniques and learning how to do them and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's exciting, and I look forward to learning and getting better at drawing and doing all this kind of stuff. So one thing I found while actually working on this drawing was, because this tree was at such a huge scale, and I was trying to fit it onto this page horizontally. I should have done it vertically, really turned the page and done it that way. It would have given me more room, but because I had to squish this all onto 1920 by 1080 was the resolution I did. I probably should have done a larger resolution, but when I actually came to drawing this little bit of market down here that you can see me doing now, the pixel tolerance was so small that I just couldn't really get any detail. So this was why I was thinking of, you know, kind of dabbling with the other styles of media when it comes to using this tablet. Like I could have quite easily found an image of some sort of store or marketplace online and then just cropped in those kind of images onto this little bit of a marketplace and tried to blend them in, and it probably would have looked a little bit better than what I can draw here, because I'm drawing here with 1 pixel at a time.
and it's really hard to get that fine detail. Now if I was drawing this whole image 1 pixel at a time, it would have taken ages, but I could have got the detail because it's a large picture. But because I'm working with 1 pixel and a small area or tiny workspace, it's really difficult to get that detail. So there wasn't really much I could even do here with this size. So I think if I was to go back and you know, do this all over again, I probably would opt for a much bigger canvas, because I could have made this like 4000 by 2000 or something if I'd wanted to. I'm not really too sure what the industry standard is for digital artworks, like what size people work with when it comes to digital. I'm sure someone in the comments will let me know. But I think like any size, people just do any sizes. If it's a big piece, then they'll have a bigger canvas. I just presumed that 1080 by I just presumed that the 1080 resolution was kind of like the standard, but I don't think it is. I'll have to look into that to see, you know, if there's kind of like an industry standard for a large piece. But yeah, obviously the bigger the canvas is, the more pixels you can get into an area. So yeah. So what you can see me doing right now is a little tiny lantern. I want to draw this separately, and then I could copy and paste this throughout the rest of the image. So I could add little lanterns all over the place. But pretty much once this is done, the only other thing I draw is a little bridge. Just an extra little bit of concept there to show you guys how the bridges are gonna look, or how I expect them to look for the rest of the build. But yeah, there's not really much more to talk about, so I am gonna leave you guys with a little bit of music for the rest of the video, and hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like, feel free to subscribe as usual. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and of course I will see you tomorrow for the actual build of this. It's going to take us about 3 or 4 weeks to finish this build, so this one's going to run through the whole month of February 2018, and once this is done, of course, we will move on to the next island. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.